I am your host, Sean Doyle. As always, welcome. You can follow me on Twitter at Doyle JFtC. Excited for this episode this week. We've got some big news that dropped just after we recorded our last episode, which is always the way it goes. But we'll talk about some George Springer and what that, where they go from here and how much better this team is as of today. And a whole bunch of other topics, including our hot takes. Another round of hot takes coming at you. So buckle up, ladies and gentlemen, because it's going to be a ride. And to help me, my passengers for this week. First of all, the feckless wonder, Steve, welcome to you. Welcome back for another week, bud.
Thank you, Sean. As always, thanks for having me. Not much to talk about, I guess. But we'll figure something out. And then, Blue Jay fans, please pardon this. I'm going to leave it on for a little while longer. I just wanted to give a Jace from the Couch tribute to Henry Allen. Henry Allen was a great pitcher, but Henry Aaron passing away this week. This is not an Alex Anthopoulos tribute. This is Henry Aaron. Why do I want to keep calling him Henry Allen? Wow.
I don't know.
Maybe I should just go backstage again and you and Karen can talk. And then maybe things will make sense. But anyway,
we'll do it again.
Maybe that's a jinx. Maybe I should take the Braves hat off. But, I thought we should acknowledge it. There are some transcendent figures that go beyond just sports or just the diamond. And Henry Aaron was definitely one of those figures, as good a man off the field and in retirement as he was as a player. And we all know how great he was as a player.
100%. And joining us as well in the other passenger seat, we've got one of those kind of old like Lincoln cars where it's just a bench in the front seat, right? Like no modern vehicles up in here, but sandwiched in the middle is Karen. Good evening, Karen. How are you?
I'm good, Sean. How are you?
I am doing very well. Thank you so much. And thanks for joining me, both of you. And as Steve mentioned, we should give a little shout out to the Atlanta fan base. We know they've lost an icon. Major League Baseball has lost an icon in Hank Aaron. And it just, there are no words. So to everybody out there, we know the impact that man had on the game of baseball and everybody around him is something that may never be repeated. So sad day, but we do have to proceed. Otherwise, it would be a rather boring episode of the Jace from the Couch podcast this week, and which isn't fair, right? Because let's be real here. I believe there are some words that need to be eaten. The feckless wonder, if I do recall, don't eat your mask. You need that. But if I'm not mistaken, Steve, I believe last week, as early as last week, you said that the Toronto Blue Jays front office would not sign one of the biggies. And
I did say that.
So I will allow you a moment to grovel to our viewers and listeners.
Well, our viewers and listeners already know I'm a dope, so I don't think they're really shocked that this would go against what I would say. But I also made a solemn promise. Charlie Montoyo is a wonderful choice to manage this Blue Jay team in 2021, and Ross Atkins should be nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize.
See, I thought that was like, I had to check the calendar here for a second to make sure this wasn't April 1st that we're recording this.
No, I had to make that. Oh God, that's such a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, see,
but I promised I would do it, so I did it.
True, you are a man of your word. However,
Pinocchio nose grows. I'm sorry, I can't help it. I didn't tell the truth, but I needed to say it because I promised I would.
Fair enough, and nobody could ask any more of you. But all of that aside, all joking aside, and the I told you so's aside, the Toronto Blue Jays landed George Springer, and I gotta say, part of me, whether it's a small part or a big part, kind of agreed with you, Steve, that I really didn't think it was going to happen. But oh my God, here we are. George Springer, Toronto Blue Jay. Karen, how happy are you with this news?
I'm very happy. I mean, what does it rival? Last year when they got Ryu, well, last year before, last off season, December of 2019, when they got Ryu, it's like they just signed a big free agent. It's almost starting to feel a little bit 2015-ish, where I mean, after however many years of mediocrity, granted not as many, because it went from 2017 through 2019, really, that's only 3 years. And then they made the playoffs last year, but it's like it feels like they're legitimate. And here's an elite free agent, an elite hitter, and he chose Toronto, and maybe he chose Toronto because they offered him by far the most money, and maybe that was it. Fine. Then they were in a position to offer the most money. They did it. They went for it. They didn't cheap out like so many people said. Oh, Rogers is never going to spend the money. So Pyro Atkins is never going to spend money. Hi, Steve. It wasn't just you, though. So many people said the same thing. And I've been over and over, right from the beginning, give these guys a chance. When the time is right, they're going to spend. They just spent.
And they did. And spend they did.
It's exciting.
Oh, so exciting. And I think, Karen, to your point, that sure, the Blue Jays may have offered him the most money or the longest term. But there are teams across the league that no matter how much money they offered and no matter how many years they offered, there are players who will not play in those cities. Thinking off the top of my head, you would have to pay me an awful lot to play for the Marlins. And I know, Steve, your hometown, but the Pirates. There are some organizations out there that, not that the Pirates organization is flawed, but their current state, even if they had paid $200 million, George Springer would not be playing there. So there's something to be said for signing in Toronto, and to your point that he chose Toronto, and he wasn't deterred by the lack of being home field for 2021, that not being clear. He wasn't deterred by that. He wasn't deterred by taxes in Toronto. He wasn't deterred by the fact that their rotation is pretty questionable right now. He chose to play in Toronto, and I could not be happier. And before I forget, Steve, just remind me a little bit later on in the show, because Alex Anthopoulos, you mentioned him, and I think there's something percolating up in here in my head that I think will apply as we go through this discussion.
So put the hat back on?
No, that's up to you. Yeah. So here we are, George Springer now playing center field for the Toronto Blue Jays. Who knows for how long? Could be a couple of years, could be the whole entire time he's with the Blue Jays. Who knows? And I believe there are 8 teams he cannot be traded to. So that means there are 22 other teams that potentially, or 21, I suppose, that potentially could take him off our hands by the time, stuff hits the fan and he can no longer run around the outfield. But you're not worried about that right now. We're not paying for that. We're paying for 2021, 2022, 2023. So that's all we need really to worry about. Okay. So I hate it as much as I hate to do this. George Springer, he's been a Blue Jay for about a week, and they will announce him on Tuesday, I believe. They'll have a press conference, and by then it'll be old news. Everybody will be like, oh, yeah, next. Which, as soon as Twitter exploded, first of all, nobody believed it because it didn't come from one of the big guys, and the big guys are all running around going, oh my God, I got scooped. What do I do? But shortly after it was confirmed, the question became, what next? right? And I'm guilty. I was asking the same thing. Like, you don't sign a George Springer and then do nothing else. Sure, they have Kirby Yates and Tyler Chatwood. Great. But that's not what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for a little bit more here. Call me greedy. I don't care. They're not done. Right. So, Steve, I'm going to start with you. And it's kind of a two-part question. And so we'll start with this first part is, how much better are the Blue Jays right now heading into the 2021 season? If the offseason stopped right now, how much better are they than last year?
I would say that they're still a playoff team. I will say that. I don't know that they're a division winner yet. They need to add to the rotation. I think we all agree they need to add to the rotation. Taijuan Walker is putting on one of the great selling jobs ever, for a free agent to come back. But, I guess, Ross is still smoking the victory cigar and just savoring what everybody said he was not going to be able to do. Plus, I mean, at this point, if a ball gets hit to third base, maybe Vladdy Guerrero can knock it down, but he's not going to throw the runner out at first. Or we can just have a perpetual shift and have everybody on the other side of the infield and just let hits go, to left field by third base, because we don't have a third baseman. So those are two pretty big holes I think the Jays have to address in some way before I could go out and say they are now the AL East favorites.
Fair enough. Karen, how much better do you see them?
Significantly better. I mean, I was going to say that I've thought they would get back to the playoffs regardless in 2021, but in a way that kind of hinged on them still having expanded playoffs in 2021, which I think they're going to do. It just might not be 8 teams per league. Maybe it'll be, I don't know what, 7 teams per league or whatever they figure out. Now, I think they're a playoff team regardless, even if it goes back to the same old 3 division winners, 2 wild cards. I'm with Steve. I think they need some better pitching to be pretty confident of being a division winner. But yeah, they're not done. There's something else brewing. There's something else that's going to happen before opening day. So yeah, right. I mean, they already had an offense that scored the 3rd most runs in the American League last year, and they just got a heck of a lot better. So
yeah. Agreed. Yeah. And I think that's the one thing that stands out to me. I think that the offense is just that much better. And you could look at it as, adding 30 more home runs and this, that, and the other thing, but they've extended that lineup to the point, that it's scary. And as you said, they're not done yet. They could still add, as Steve mentioned, a third baseman, because we all know Vlad is not the answer, and they can tout it as much as they want and make the little guy feel good about himself, but everybody knows they can't be a playoff team with the third base situation they have right now. It is what it is. But back to Springer here for a second. I think I know I mentioned this kind of behind the scenes at Jays from the Couch, but I really believe that George Springer was their domino, because he was their big fish, right? Like, he was their main target. Now that they actually managed to land him, everything else can start to fall in place, because they really couldn't do much until they had that matter settled, right? That you gotta know where $25 million a season is going to go. But now that it's there, and now that they know that answer, they still have lots of payroll room. They still have their prospect capital in place. So the question, and maybe Matt here, who's watching on YouTube, as always, thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. But Matt has a great question. Does Atkins sign Paxton, Gregorius in hand, and then call it an offseason? So it's an interesting question. And Steve, maybe I'll start with you. just directly to Matt's question here, signing those three, is that an off season? Are they done?
If they put those three pieces in place, I think you're checking off all the boxes. I'm not sure that Paxton would be my primary focus as far as adding to the rotation, but if he falls in the Blue Jays' laps, okay, yeah, that's fine. I'll root for him. Gregorius opens up a lot of different options, and I don't think that he's seen his best days yet. I still think he has another season or two left in him. And Brad Hand, throw into Reese McGuire, that's perfect. That is just a perfect late inning solution. But seriously, I think having Hand and Yates be their leverage relievers, you could still groom Romano as your ninth inning guy if you still believe that there should be only a ninth inning guy. I personally think you take your best relievers and you mix and match them, and if they have to come in the sixth or the eighth, wherever it is, that's what you do. But if you basically, Matt, you bring up, I think, right to the point there. If you bring in a starting pitcher, a shortstop / third baseman, because I do believe Gregorius can handle third base, and another leverage reliever, I think everything else is just gravy.
Fair enough. Karen, how about you to Matt's question?
Hi, Matt. Really good question. I like Brad Hand, and there's been rumors that he's going to sign soon, and the Jays might be one of the finalists as far as getting him goes. I like solidifying the bullpen, like you guys are saying. I mean, I remember a few years back when Kansas City won it all, and a big part of what they had was this lights out bullpen. They had this three-headed monster with Herrera and Greg Holland and Wade Davis, and once you got into their bullpen, that was it. You couldn't beat them. And I mean, potentially, I could see something like that with Yates, assuming that he has a bounce back season, Hand and Romano, and the other guys they've got after them aren't chopped liver either. I mean, Dolis was pretty good last year. Ryan Baraki, assuming that he's in the bullpen. So yeah, they could have something pretty good down there. James Paxton, he was terrific prior to 2020. We all know that there was the injury in 2020, so we don't really know how he's going to bounce back from that. That's my only concern. I mean, if we knew that he was going to be pre-2020 James Paxton, then absolutely bring him on board. Gregorius, I don't know. I mean, I really think they need a third baseman, and Gregorius hasn't been a third baseman. He's been a shortstop. Now, if you play shortstop, yeah, they can slide you over to third, and that's been done with a lot of shortstops as they get a little bit older, so they could go that way. Wouldn't necessarily be my first choice. I mean, there's other benefits to bringing a Gregorius. He's a veteran. Maybe he helps the kids become that much better as far as major leaguers, so there could be benefits in that way. So yeah, I mean that plus what they've already done, sure.
Right. Yeah, and to answer Matt's question, I think I would say the same thing. Yes, if they added those three, call it an off season, and let's go. Let's get the season started. The question really becomes whether or not those three are the three that solve or scratch the itch that the Blue Jays have, right? And the big question there for me is Gregorius. And Karen, you hit on this, that he hasn't played third base. He hasn't played since 2014 at third base, and it was a handful of games. Sure, he's athletic, and I'm sure he could handle it, or maybe get into a mix with him and Bo Bichette and Kevin Biggio and Vlad. Like they could play it that way, but it seems to me why that would just be making him fit for the sake of making him fit. Now his offense, I mean, sure, but we've already talked about the offense. They don't need Gregorius. Would he be a welcome addition? Sure. And Matt has a great point, as when he responded as he's listening live, that he's trying to get more left-handed. I couldn't agree more. I like that idea. One thing, though, that I found while writing a piece on who will lead off for the Blue Jays is that Kevin Biggio actually hit from the left side, hit left-handed pitching better than he did right-handed pitching. Whether that means anything with regard to this conversation, who knows? But my my hesitation is Gregorius is kind of just adding for the sake of adding. Is it a better idea than trading for a third baseman? Maybe. It's cheaper in one sense, I suppose. Paxton, I would be thrilled. Sure. I would also be happy with Taijuan Walker. I would also be happy with, trading for other solutions as well. One thing, and Steve, I see you there, so I'm going to stop here and I'll come back to my final point about Brad Hand, but you go ahead.
No, I just want to jump in back on Gregorius again. The Phillies were all ready to play him at third base last year, and then they had that kid, what's it, Bame, is that the Phillies, the rookie third baseman from last year, that really performed sooner and better than they expected, so they kept Gregorius, where he was. And, he has the instincts to play third. And I think playing on the field turf, or whatever they're calling the turf at Rogers Center now, the new playing surface they put down, I think that will only help him.
Yeah, fair enough. And I wouldn't complain. I'm just like, if we're trying to match up fits, you know what I mean? That would be my only hesitation. But anyway, so for all of our listeners and viewers out there tuning in on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, thank you so much for watching our live streaming of episode 246. Don't forget, we record this every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Don't forget, Tuesdays, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, is the On Feck Circle featuring the Feckless Wonder himself, where he brings his own unique takes to your Toronto Blue Jays. And Karen, we're setting yours up, I believe, this week. We're going to be trying out the Sunny Side of the Dome, your new show. And yes. I can't wait for that. Listen.
Yes,
I'm excited.
I'm very excited.
Yeah. So, Brad Hand, I have an idea here, and I'm wondering if the Toronto Blue Jays are hedging their bets that they may not be able to land a starter. I feel like they will. But just in case, there's nothing wrong with piling up that bullpen. I wonder if, in fact, they're going to rely on this short starts, the pulling guys in the 5th or 6th, and leaving it up to the bullpen. I don't know how often you can do that and get away with it, but it does strike me as, when you add a Tyler Chatwood in there, it does strike me that maybe that's the way they're going with this bullpen, and the days of 7, 8, 9 inning starts are over, particularly in Toronto, if that's the case. But anyway, it's just an interesting little thought that kind of just came to me when we were talking about Brad Hand. So where do we go now, right? They need a third baseman. They need pitching. They need a starter. They've been linked, I think, today to Masahiro Tanaka, who is looking somewhere in between 15 and 20 million a year. I don't know about y'all, and maybe this is a good time to get you to weigh in here, but if it's me, I would say strongly thanks, but no thanks. Steve, what are your thoughts on Tanaka?
Love him as a competitor. Love him as, a major league starting pitcher. I don't see the fit here either. I still down deep feel that he's going back to Japan. I think the Yankees getting Taijuan this afternoon for a bunch of, I think they're preschoolers. I'm 100%, I'm not sure how young they are, but they're pretty young.
Close,
So there'll be a new stadium in Pittsburgh by the time these guys would be ready for the majors. But I just don't see spending that kind of money on Tanaka. Because I think Tanaka wants to be a Yankee, or he wants to go home. Maybe he'll settle, for a year. But is that really what you want to do? Would you not want to pursue a Walker or give one of the kids? I would like to see a lot of the younger starters start the year in Buffalo, which would be ironic because you'd have your best prospects at Buffalo and then the major league team in Dunedin, but that's a different, issue. I'm a no on Tanaka, and I love the guy. I do. I mean, I have a warm spot in my heart for all the players that come over from Japan, but I'm going to say no.
Yeah, I mean the Yankees would their preference was to go out and trade for Jameson Taillon, who's broken, and sign Corey Kluber, who is also potentially broken, instead of signing Masahiro Tanaka, which is, that's a statement in and of itself. But Karen, where are you on Tanaka?
Yeah, I think I agree with you guys. I think that's a bit of an overpay for where he is at this stage of his career. And you're right, Sean. I mean, that's a bit of a red flag there. If the Yankees are passing on someone, then that's not normally a good sign. So yeah, and I was reading some numbers about Tanaka over his past whatever it is, 2-3 seasons, and he really hasn't been that good lately. I mean, I think of Tanaka and I think of when he first burst on the scene in MLB, but he's not really that pitcher anymore. And I mean, the Jays, we've said it over and over again. They've got lots of depth in house. And if they're going to add at this point, they should be adding quality. I want someone who is an upgrade over anybody not named Ryu, and the jury's out on Pearson, but I'm optimistic on Pearson. But I mean, I want someone to be with those two. I want someone who, when opposing teams see him on the mound, it's like, oh God, how are we going to beat this guy? So.
Exactly. So with that in mind, then, so Tanaka off the table. We know they need a third baseman and a pitcher. So we're not the only ones, but we throw around these scenarios. Maybe the Cubs can trade Chris Bryant and package him with Kyle Hendricks, and the Blue Jays have a 1-2, an option there. Maybe Cincinnati would send, Luis Castillo if we take on Mike Moustakas money. And there are these potential, and even Nolan Arenado in Colorado, who, Colorado may be looking at, like, what have we done with this contract, right? And we want to build forward, moving forwards, and we want to sign Trevor Story. We want to keep him. So, maybe there's something that can be worked out there, but that's a lot of money to take on. Personally, I would be okay with that because it's Nolan friggin' Arenado. But if you're looking at just that third base pitching package together, where the Blue Jays can again use their financial wherewithal to take that on, Steve, which combination do you prefer?
Well, I think it's hard not to drool over Nolan, Arenado, but and maybe it's because I just see the Reds more often living in Pittsburgh. If you get Luis Castillo and Mike Moustakas, I'm in. I'm all in, and I might even kiss Ross Atkins and Charlie Montoyo on the mouth if they pull that off. Okay, I mean, seriously, that's okay. You just keep with the theme of the love fest I have with these guys now.
Well, it would be a different place than where Ross currently has asked you to kiss him. So,
well, I'm sure. I'm sure that if they ever open the border and I try to come up to Rogers Center, I'm pretty sure I'm getting turned away at the gate. So.
All right, so Moose and Castillo. Karen, which is your preferred third base pitcher combination?
Yeah, I'd go with them as well, with the caveat that I mean, Castillo he's going to be expensive, and as much as I would love to have him on the Jays, I don't really want them to completely give away the farm. So I mean, all things being equal, yeah, I'd take them. But I mean, if it would cost less in a package going back to the other team, then maybe I'd go with a Hendricks deal. So yeah, a lot
Yeah.
of things. A lot of things to look at that we don't know, that we could only speculate on.
No, of course, and I can speculate that the cost of obtaining that package from Cincinnati would be more than we may or may not be comfortable with. So I would probably lean towards Chicago as well. But in the effort of addressing their starting pitching, Jabba the Cool watching on the YouTube has this idea. Do the Jays sign Trevor Bauer? Steve, they've been linked to him. He's met with them. He knows how to operate social media. He's savvy. He's smart. Former Cleveland guy. Steve, do they sign him?
No, because of the price tag. It's that eventually they have to start doing the math. They have to think about if they can't extend their core, what it's going to start costing them to keep them together. They've already committed to Springer and Bauer. Well, I mean, I'm one of the few that would say if I have a big game, I want that kind of mentality on the mound. But I wanted Tanner Roark to start the playoff game too. So you need to weigh either way. But you just can't afford the price tag that Bauer's asking. He's not worth Garrett Cole, Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer money. He's just flat out not worth that. So I say the Blue Jays just don't, from a financial standpoint, not from a on-field standpoint, from sheer dollars and cents. They don't sign him.
Okay, Karen, how about you?
No, for a lot of reasons. One, what I agree with Steve that for the kind of money that he's asking, I mean, they can better spend that money for what he has said that he wants. I mean, we could get James Paxton and Taijuan Walker in all likelihood, and probably be a lot better off. Two, I look at his career, Bauer, that he has had up until now. He had a phenomenal season on the field in 2020. Look at his career before that. He's been all over the map. I mean, he's been really good a couple of years. He's been very ordinary for the other years. And I don't know which Trevor Bauer on field we're going to see going forward. But I really have a hunch that we're not going to see the kind of year that he had in 2020 again. And then there's Trevor Bauer, the person. And I mean, we're not going to go into detail about some of the lovely things that he's done. But if they were rumored to send guys like Marcus Stroman out of town, who, I mean, what has he done that was so terrible other than he's very vocal on social media, and if he has an opinion, whether you like it or not, he's going to let you know, and he won't back down. Well, if they don't want someone like that around, how can they justify having Trevor Bauer in their clubhouse? It just doesn't add up. So no, and no.
Yeah, 100%. No, thank you, Mr. Bauer. And while we're recording here, it would appear that the Washington Nationals have come to an agreement with Brad Hand on a one-year deal worth $10.5 million. Basically, what he would have been paid if somebody had claimed him.
Oh, man.
Okay, so we just heard this, so it's a lot to kind of get your head around as far as whether or not Toronto could offer him 2 years, and Steve's hanging himself because the Blue Jays could have claimed him. Anybody could have claimed him for $10 million, but they didn't, regardless. And you know, neither here nor there, like really the amount and the term. The Blue Jays could have paid that, but you know, they didn't. Anyway, Washington gets their closer, and the Blue Jays are missing out on another, whether or not that goes back to a previous episode where we talked about how they swing and miss all the time. I think the George Springer narrative can put that to bed. But anyway, Brad Hand, Washington Nationals, Toronto Blue Jays will have Kirby Yates. They will have Jordan Romano. I'm not all that worried. However, we are almost out of time, so we're going to get right to it, and it's going to be fun. Here we go. So hot and her. All right. We don't have a lot of time for your hot takes, so make them quick. Steve, what's your hot take for episode 246 of our podcast?
The Blue Jays still sign a center fielder.
Whoa.
Oh, I know I told you to be quick, but you got to give me something here. Still sign a center fielder.
You got to tune in Tuesday, yes. No, but I think they still sign a center fielder or someone that can play center field, have to become the fourth outfielder, and then they move one of either Grichuk, Tio, or Gurriel for the pitching and third baseman they need.
Oh, my goodness. That is a hot take. Wow. Karen, good luck beating that.
No, I can't. As we've said, the Jays are not done. They're still going to add. They're still going to add at least one established starting pitcher. I don't know if that'll be a free agent signing or a trade, but whoever he is will have the best season of any Blue Jays pitcher in 2021. Not Ryu, not Pearson, not any of the other in-house options, but to be determined. He's out there, he's coming, and he's going to make a big difference.
So hold on. Their new addition is going to be their best pitcher
in 2021.
Oh my God, I love you guys. These are great hot takes. Wow. Okay. So here's mine. I'm afraid to even say it because I'm really worried that I might actually be right. But the Blue Jays are going to roll with Vlad at third. And I do not like myself for saying that. I feel like I need to have a shower because the idea of watching Vlad at third for, a while is not appealing to me. So, but I really have this feeling. I have a feeling that in order to address third base, they're going to have to pay something they're not comfortable with. And it's via trade, I mean, of course, right? So they love their prospects, they love their farm, and I don't see them parting with enough to address third base. So there you go, Vladdy, get your glove. It's going to be a long season, but regardless, they'll score a lot of runs and it'll be fine. Whatever.
What about Alex Anthopoulos? You told me to remind you about.
Right. Thank you so much. If this was Alex Anthopoulos, of old, because he's changed now, Atlanta's not giving him the reins to do what he did in Toronto, I can tell you that. But if it was, this offseason would have been even more ridiculous because he would not have stopped at Kirby Yates, at George Springer. You know for a fact that he would be calling Oakland and saying, hey, Matt Chapman, I want him. You know what I mean? Like, he would be all in this offseason, and it would be even more exciting than it is right now. And it's pretty exciting right now.
Yeah.
But Alex Anthopoulos would, just think about how great this offseason would be if the old
Atkins might have done that. That's the thing. We don't know what he's tried to do. We only know what has materialized.
You're absolutely right. But my point is that Alex Anthopoulos would have made a whole bunch of things materialize because he doesn't give a what. Farm system's fourth best in baseball? Not anymore. But we just had an awesome offseason. You know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of approach I'm saying. I'm not saying it's smart. I'm not saying he should. I'm just saying it would have been crazy. But anyway, all right. So that brings us to the end of episode 246 of the Jays from the Couch podcast. We'll go around the horn here, Steve. Let everybody know how they can follow you and give us a little teaser for the On Feck Circle on Tuesday.
Sure. Well, you can follow me at US of Jays, both on Twitter, and I have a US of Jays Facebook page as well. This Tuesday is going to be, I'm going to throw down the gauntlet to Rogers and the Blue Jays. I'm going to say their next big move, here's the second hot take you get for free, is they're going to come out right away, announce they're playing their games in Dunedin. They're going to play the games in Dunedin until the last series of June, where they play the Mariners. Have a big comeback, have a big to-do around Canada Day. But in the meantime, they're going to dedicate Rogers Center to the COVID vaccination and testing program. They're going to take all of their things. That's what they should do with that time. Don't put in a new scoreboard. Don't put a new turf. That's what you do. You actually commit to the Blue Jays fan base and the country as a whole during that time that you're in need, and take advantage of it so it's win-win. You're helping your fan base. Players will be settled by playing there for a little bit longer period of time. Might even be helping the Tampa Bay Rays, actually, because they can see whether they can split time between Tampa and Montreal. But
Okay. Karen, your turn. Let everybody know how they can follow you and give us a little tease for the inaugural episode of the Sunny Side of the Dome.
Yes, well, I'm on Twitter at Karen Soutar1. That's SOUTAR1. I'm on Twitter a lot, love to chat, and really looking forward to Thursday. And I'm planning for a regular part of Thursday to be looking through Blue Jay colored glasses.
Awesome.
Where I put on the glasses and give one really Blue Jay centric take on something.
Can't wait. And I'm so happy that we have our YouTube channel set up to provide different types of content, including the On-Fact Circle and Sunny Side of the Dome. Very happy. And in order to be able to follow all of this, you need to subscribe and click on that little notification button, the little bell on YouTube. You'll know when all of our shows go live. Don't forget Sundays, 7 p.m. Eastern Time here for the Jays from the Couch Radio podcast. Tuesdays, 7 p.m. Eastern Time for the On-Fact Circle, and Thursdays, 7 p.m. Eastern Time for the Sunny Side of the Dome. Lots of great stuff at jaysfromthecouch.com and our YouTube channel, and of course on Facebook and Twitter at Jays from Couch. And as well, on top of all of that, for your listening pleasure, the podcast, the audio version, available on Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you find a podcast, you'll find Jays from the Couch. So, for Steve, for Karen, for Alex Anthopoulos, for Ross Atkins, this is Sean Doyle. You can follow me on Twitter at DoyleJFtC. Hoping life gives you a juicy fastball down the middle and you don't miss it. Take care.